is because cannabis saved my life. It saves my life on an almost daily basis, and it keeps my family alive. So it's well beyond the science of it and what makes sense as a nurse. It makes sense to me as a human being, and that's that. So we'll get right into it. So, like I said, my name is Jen Dunn. I consider myself a cannabis nurse. I'm well versed in the endocannabinoid system, and I'll work with patients to use cannabinoid therapeutics in a safe and effective manner. So started this journey with my husband with Vital Alternative Healing Association. You'll see that on the cards that I passed out with the topical THC sample products. That's our nonprofit, so we do education, and that's still going. We've also evolved now into Vital Cannabis Inc., and so that is our medical cannabis company that provides access. And I brought 2 menus in of our products and order forms and information. So like I said, cannabis has kept me living. I suffered childhood trauma, and for the first time when I used pot, whatever you want to call it, wasn't called cannabis then. Our eyes weren't open yet. But whatever, like, that was the first time I felt truly connected and a whole human being. I wasn't aware of why that connection was until years later I got diagnosed with PTSD from childhood trauma. Okay, so it's kept me alive on several occasions. So that's my husband and I there, and we are the face, heart, and soul of Vital Cannabis Inc. Okay, so that's some of our products. We've developed all our own product lines, so we have several topical products, and that's a great gateway to getting, for instance, my mother, who's 80 years old, and the demon weed mentality, that got her into loving cannabis. Okay, so that's one way to go about it. Okay, so we're talking about pain relief today. Pain and pain relief. And pain is in many different forms, okay? So the physical pain is obvious, and there's many different kinds of physical pain, from acute pain to neuropathic pain with multiple sclerosis, to chronic pain, and emotional pain. I need to point out that emotional pain is the same reaction in the brain that physical pain is. Okay, that's my take-home message, I think. And along with that, the person who is in pain defines their pain. And the person who is in pain has every right to access anything that will help that be better. Okay? There's no way that this needs to be the last resort. The endocannabinoid system is our first line of defense against pain. Period. And if it's out of whack and it needs some supplementation, it needs some supplementation. Period. Okay? So anyways, we have a couple of choices. We could go pharmaceuticals, we could go cannabis, or we can meet in the middle, which is probably where most of us are, and seeing if we can possibly get off safely some of those pharmaceuticals. Okay, this is what I'd really like to be saying right now. Yeah, go home, have a couple of puffs and call me in the morning. I can't wait until that day is here, and I can't wait until nurse practitioners can prescribe and recommend, because that's the way I'm going. Okay, so that's coming.
Can you read the line at the bottom, please?
Well, there's a huge flare with mine too, but it says, take 2 totes of weed, Mrs. Grunfield, and call me in the morning. However, this is what's happening, okay? So the doctor, the bad news is there's no illness to your cure. However, the good news is we can manage your pain with medical marijuana. But what the really bad news is I'll be arrested if I prescribe pot. So take 2 aspirins a day and see me next month. That's a sad reality. That's a sad reality. But it takes only a few to step up and push the boundaries and get rid of this nonsense. Okay, so this is what we have instead. Oh, come in, yeah, whatever type of pain, and some opiates. We're in an opiate epidemic, And the only response that I've seen from the College of Physicians and Surgeons, and I have the paperwork here, is, okay, so now we're going to implement these changes. You know, if you've been on long-term opiates, we're going to cut you in half. And they're sending patients home in withdrawal. Like, you know, so there's ways of going about it, and yes, overprescribing is definitely a problem, but it's been our reality for so long. We need to have those safe injection sites. We need to have all of those sites that are a result of overprescribing, prescribing inappropriately, and all of those other things that come with opiates. Okay, so I'm not sure if anybody knows this, but I must have known this, but I never kind of put it into this frame of reference before. But I seen Dr. Gavin Rattay speak a couple months ago, and he said that the job that opiates do in the human body is the same work that love does. It's the same feeling, it's the same brain regions. So, twofold. Patient walks into the doctor's office. The doctor's completely unaware, probably the patient is too, of long-standing childhood trauma or whatever it is, gets prescribed, they feel whole again, and now they're searching, and so basically they're hanging themselves. And a couple things going on, like, you know, like, I don't know if people are, like, they need to be, it can't be just so easily written down on a piece of paper and say, here, this is going to solve your problems. Meanwhile, not even talking about side effects, not even like looking at all of the future possible like really bad outcomes. It's important, it shouldn't be taken lightly. So this is what we have instead. So if we think about the SARS epidemic, we think about all those epidemics that have been called as a public health epidemic. We sure did a lot of work with those, right? And it was pretty obvious that's what we were dealing with. This has been called as an epidemic like a year ago. And this is still happening. This is downtown East Side. All of this. Daily basis. At least 2 deaths. Right under our noses. Okay? So that's where the nonsense hopefully stops. You know, and with the college, if they're going to say, yeah, we need to like look at this opiates and how we're prescribing, then they better stop saying to their patients, you need to sign this contract stating you will not consume medical cannabis or I will fire you or stop prescribing. That's happening. That's happening. Like it's...
Really?
It is. And so that particular person actually, she got on CBD tinctures and CBD caps, and she asked me to try to get her down on her opiates. I said, you call me when you forget a dose. She called me the other day, she said, I haven't had any in 3 days. So, and that was like, that was a month or 5 weeks. It was a very short period of time. Okay, so there is hope. And there is different ways that we can deal with our pain. And it's up to us to determine and define what those are. Because again, another little joke. You know, like there is plenty of evidence, and you know, like on a daily basis, there's like really quality empirical papers coming out in support of this. But yet we have like all the fear-mongering political people that know nothing about it, right? So I'm just wanting people to really consider cannabis as an option. Not only with, perhaps, hopefully, you know, if your goal is to get off of opiates, it works really well with that. It also works very well together, like synergistically, so that's why it allows you to slowly go off of your opiates, because it works together, and cannabis does many of the same things, but with the opiates, as well as all of the other endocannabinoid receptors. So the endocannabinoid system is about balance, and pain is not about balance, okay, but it is interacting with all of our cells, inside of our cells, you know, controlling the flow of ions in and out of our cells. So it's absolutely remarkable, and yeah, one of the best things that it does is control pain, cannabis, because that's what our bodies do. That's one of its jobs. So we were talking about CBD. So CBD addiction and the opiate epidemic, like I said, great case study. This woman was on opiates for 35 plus years and was able to come off of the last of her opiates within 5 to 6 weeks with CBD.
Wow.
So the natural pain relief. Okay. And so we talk about CBD, but I don't want us to forget about THC either. There's a lot of disease states, MS for instance, that requires a fair bit of THC with CBD. The study into CBD is exploding because it's absolutely wonderful, from pain management to insulin control to everything. I like that, the vitamin D of the endocannabinoid system, the CBD for sure. And yeah, it's taken into account that you need to have a little bit of THC, like the entourage effect. If you have CBD sitting in the receptor, it needs almost like a sprinkle of THC for the receptor to open up and kind of enable it to do its job. So a very small, say a 30 to 1, 20 to 1 ratio, something like that. Okay, just getting a little bit of the properties of cannabis. So it works wonders for a lot of folks. And when we were mentioning, Elaine was mentioning that it may not be overnight because we can't see it. Topically, you can definitely see it. So, like say with psoriasis, the plaques of psoriasis are clearing within 5 days. It's like, wow, that's very visible. I can see that. But that's still happening in our body, but like at a cellular level where we're not able to notice for perhaps 3 months. But it's definitely doing its job. And as you see here, it is 20 times the anti-inflammatory power of aspirin. That's big. And 2 times more than hydrocortisone. That's huge. Also very high in antioxidant properties. So it's very good at preventing and then cleaning up debris, preventing pain. Okay, so, and I don't have to say this as much anymore because I think we're having more cannabis conversations. But initially I would have a lot of, oh, I don't believe you, what do you mean that's going to help this and that, and it's just so far-fetched. But it's what we were alluding to, so it's because of the endocannabinoid system. So we have in our body produces cannabis, essentially. That's what it's doing. And so we have all of these receptor sites and ligands and enzymes and everything that's working in our body, and it works with every single system. So you're looking at your hormones, you're looking at all of these different things, and it's because it's working with the endocrine system. It's because it's working directly in the brain. Has a possibility of crossing the blood-brain barrier with cancers and things like that. But it's because our bodies, that's what our bodies are. We're basically an encapsulated cannabis whatever. It's just the cannabis plant is there to supplement when our own body has not been able to maintain balance. Hand in hand. So that just goes into a little bit into the endocannabinoid system. I'm not going to go into depth because I'm starting to learn my audience. And I'm just like, oh, I was so excited about the 2AG and everything like that. But basically, like I said, the receptors from head to toe, their main job is to protect us, to balance us, to keep everything stable, and to bring us back into balance when we're out of whack. So that's, alleviating pain through all of these pathways in our brain. It's not simply going, oh, I'm going to have a choke and then I forget it. No, you're not forgetting your pain. It's actually changing the pain transmission, perception, everything in your body along in your nervous system. Okay? And so this is just so the endocannabinoids are within our body. They produce cannabinoids, but also cannabis is there to supplement. So that's just kind of the endo, phyto, and cannabinoid system. So the plants in the body. So, can you see that at all?
No.
Or is it pretty fuzzy? Okay, so it's just basically it's showing, you can see here how much CBD does. Okay, so it's a hard-working cannabinoid, and it wants to help you out as best as it can. So it's working really, really hard. And like I said, it's wonderful in taking in supplementation, different doses to like ward off disease for, you know, there's a lot of different doses, but definitely CBD is very, very therapeutic. When I first started this, I think we kind of turned around. I was like, oh, THC, you know, and now I'm like, oh, I love CBD. You know? So, and now I'm realizing that, no, they're best, you know, married together. I can just appreciate it more now. Okay, yeah, so maybe that points out a little bit more. So THC is the orange dot there, CBD is outlined as the green square, and it shows what each one of them does and where you need to have both to do what you want. For instance, reduces pain. You need to have both. Now, I guess part of the reason why I got so passionate about us defining our own pain and deciding when and where and, you know, to determine how we're going to deal with it is because of this. So like the biosocial concept of chronic pain. For instance, my husband, he's 18 months in on a herniated disc. Is it affecting our marriage? Yeah. Yeah, it is. You know? So you get pain, you can't sleep, you have anxiety, yada, yada, yada. And this is not doing anybody any good. If we want to crunch numbers, maybe that's what they should look at. It's like, well, how long am I going to have this employee, for instance? You know, like it's just, it's a vicious cycle. And I'm sure a lot of us know that. Okay. So this is a little bit of what I do. Okay, so these are some CBD chocolates, as well as information package and everything I got together for one of our members. And yeah, it's just a beautiful. It just provides me with such gratitude. Like, I'm so grateful for being able to do what I do. I'm just so grateful. Okay, so there's plenty of these studies. Plenty. Okay, it was supposed to be a video. He was smoking. And there's a lot of this. Hopefully you can see this one. So so there's a lot more anecdotal supporting. We're getting there, and we don't really, you know, yes, we need a clinical trial when we're looking at specific things, but we know it's safe, we know it's not going to kill us, we know it's effective. Okay? So this is just our contact information, and I'm going to leave just plenty of time for questions and answers back and forth. A lot of times that was missed at previous ones. So, but I just want to this is just some of our products here, just as a display, and then I have a couple of menus of our products if you happen to want to order or have questions or anything like that. And if you have any questions about, I know that there was some pamphlets and things like that people wanted, if you just email me on my card, then I can just send you a copy. And what else was I going to say? Oh, and for CBD, if you guys want any information on CBD, is projectcbd.org. I highly urge you to go there. It's a great site. It breaks down all of the medical journals into lay terms, and it's very current. And we just actually seen him speak. Projectcbd.org. But maybe I think I'll just open it up to questions, if that's okay. My card's right here. Yeah.
Last year at the hemp conference, the general consensus by the doctors and scientists that were there, that Elaine and I attended, was if you have an ailment and if you're in question to that ailment as to what to take, CBD it immediately, and then add to that. As we are all individuals, we react differently to different ratios of CBD versus THC. So they, they work with it. because something doesn't work, you have to ask, like Dr. David Heffernan said at our 200-person conference. He said, if something doesn't work, you have to ask, what didn't work? Because there are so many plant ratios and so many ratios of CBD versus other cannabinoids.
There is a lot of different applications as well, which Jen might, if you have questions. I just wanted to point out that vaporizing isn't your only method, and also in tinctures and oils, those aren't your only. There are suppositories. One of our advocates, David Hutchinson, for example, has done a lot of investigation. Suppositories are the way to go for pharmaceuticals in Paris, in France, in many places in Europe as well, because it's going directly bypassing your vital organs and going right to the source.
Yeah, it's got a great bioavailability too, so biggest bang for your buck.
Benefits without psychoactivity. Of course, you're going to go talking about muscle pain, but there are bath salts and bath bombs. If you've got general aches and pains and cramps or whatever, you just sit in a hot bath with some nice THC bath salts. Jen has some wonderful creams. There are other modes, but don't discount vaporizing. If that is something, one of the things that I've learned just recently with vaporizing, because I personally have never smoked and I hate the smell and all of that, but vaporizing will go right to the source. So if you're having a really bad MS day, or with movement and so forth, vaporizing will go to that condition, that situation.
Yeah, and you can think of vaporizing as a PRN, right? You're like, oh, I need that quick, immediate pain relief. That's a great way of doing it.
Yeah. And think about dosing. With THC, you don't have to experience a high every time. Microdosing is really important and continued microdosing throughout the day. Well, like Jen had mentioned, it will trigger those neuroreceptors.
Yeah, and microdosing is very important because, you don't want to saturate your endocannabinoid system either, because then you're not allowing it to do its own work. So definitely microdosing, and then allows for tolerance too. Say you have to get up to like 400 milligrams a day or whatever it is. Well, you don't start at 400, but it allows you, and it's successful, and enable you to do that.
And going up to 400 milligrams would be for cancer, right?
Well, yeah.
Conditions?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're talking about cancer, and that is a whole other ballgame. So cancer, and so you have to, if you're going to take on treatment with cannabis, that is something you really need to follow a complete regimen. Just don't take a little bit a day and think that that's going to help your situation. It may help, but it may not. So if you're going to go that route, you may as well do it all and go all in.
But they also say it's a holistic approach, psychologically, dietary,
absolutely.
medicinal.
Yeah, just as Jen had mentioned. So are there any questions now? I know there's lots, so keep them coming.
Probably naive, just explain vaporizing.
Okay.
So instead of smoking, it allows you to get the cannabinoids or the active medicine without combusting the product. So it's at a lower temperature, you don't have any of that irritation to your mucous membranes, but it gets the cannabinoids into your body quickly.
So how do you vaporize?
Well,
with the
like
pen.
a dry vape pen or whatever, when you take off the top, put it in there. The good ones, they need to be temperature controlled or they're worthless, because if you're up above a certain temperature, you're combusting. So it has a temperature control, you turn it on and take a little, and there you go.
And it's vapor, so you're not involving the whole room in your little adventure there. So, because I had a friend say to me, my neighbor is smoking pot all the time and the smell is driving me crazy, and I said, buy him a couple of vape cans. What are you talking about? Let's solve that problem. But, and vaporizing, there are vaporizers out there now that are really involved, and some of them release cannabinoids at different temperatures,
Where is that?
Yeah, so cookies, jujubes are not medicine, okay? They are and they aren't.
I need to, that's
Yeah, go
They
ahead.
are, they are.
no, go ahead, you go first.
Okay, she can counteract me, but when I'm talking about the most vulnerable, and I had a situation where a young 16-year-old never done any smoking of pot before, was treating from a dispensary, was given jujubes. And he is 16 years old, so he ate like 10 of them. And, you know, I mean, they taste good. So how many, what is your dose? This is of critical importance for Kyla. We need to know how many milligrams of CBD she gets a day to maintain her balance so that she doesn't have seizures. If you're not measuring your dose and you don't know exactly what's in it, that's why I say cookies are not medicine, but they are medicine. But the problem is, everybody eats the whole cookie. And there's like, 98 milligrams. Chris and I.
And it doesn't affect you, they want to have a second one. Half an hour later, they can't get out of your chair.
At our last event, when Chris and I talked about going to the we're real newbies with everything, and we go to the Cannabis Hemp Conference a year ago, and they're passing out on a tray little things of that beautiful Chicago popcorn. And I grabbed one, and Chris grabbed one, and he downs it. And I said, how many milligrams of THC in this? And she said, 28. Well, I would be soon.
Actually, it was really good. Well, I couldn't get out of my chair.
So, I mean, and you're depending on the supplier of that, and that can be very helpful if you're going to have a cup of tea at night and you want a little bit of cookie, fine. But in my mind, for medically, I like to see dosing and you knowing how many milligrams it's going to make, that it's going to make you high, how many milligrams that is working best for you for CBD so you don't overdo CBD because it's a waste. You may as well, and the THC, you don't want to walk around stoned. I mean, I have nothing against recreational marijuana. My issue is that if you need to be smoking it all day and be high all day long, there's something going on wrong there. So, I mean, we're talking about kids when they're talking about, you know, this whole thing with schizophrenia and children and how it's affecting their brain. Yes, you know, you have to consider, why is that young person needing to be smoking that much and that intense THC products daily? So sorry.
No, not at all.
Eating.
How is that on your system?
I just
Oh,
wanted
that's
to
right.
add the warning, actually.
That's what I want.
So if you want the greatest effect, it needs to be on an empty stomach. If it's not an empty stomach, the onset of action is variable from 30 to 90 minutes. So in that 30 to 90 minutes, there it goes, I need a second cookie. However, it hasn't kicked in. And it gets converted in the liver to 4 times greater psychoactivity when eating.
So when I take
That's
mine before
That's
bed,
scientific.
when I take mine before bed, I really don't know what the heck's going on because I'm sleeping.
Well, that's good.
THC is pretty good for
You
sleep.
don't need to know if you don't have to get up. If you're taking it for insomnia, it's working, it's working.
Okay, so what's the difference between like an oil, like a tincture, and vaporizing then?
Okay, so the oils, tinctures, they tend to be like the more concentrated products. So you're smoking bud, you're vaporizing, you know that it's 17% THC, it's 17% THC. But to get the oils, to get all of those other concentrates, they're taking a whole bunch of cannabis and squeezing out the goodness, and there you got 99% THC.
Okay,
So it's the concentrate, the extraction methods.
so you can't
And then-
regulate it as well for the tinctures?
No, I would say you'd be able to regulate it more.
Okay, but
Yeah.
so there's 99% as opposed to, you know, in the vapor what the percentage is.
No, you should always know what your percentage of
Okay.
what you're consuming. I'm just saying,
In that-
it's a concentrated
Yeah.
product of a whole bunch bunch of the dried cannabis that you would be smoking or vaporizing.
Right.
And there's many different applications, like, so there is the oils, there is distillates, like, there's so many applications and products of medicinal cannabis, and it's depending on what you're wanting to treat, what your goals are, and, you know, different variables like that. It's very patient-directed, very person-directed.
And it can be eaten in the raw state as well, in salads. Very good for you. You get the THCA before it turns into the psychoactive when you eat it.
Unless it's a CBD plant, which would be CBDA, but it's the acid form of it. So juicing is another mode of getting the healthy cannabis plant product into you.
Now, do you need a prescription for even the topical stuff, everything? Everything?
Dispensaries, like, we're a dispensary, actually we're more of a product and more of a company with a nurse running it, but anyways, they don't require, and the government does, but they don't have topicals, right?
No, so licensed producers are your only legal mechanism of gaining access, your legal way, your legal right to access of cannabis, medical cannabis. That's your legal way. However, like I said, and I'm not counseling you to commit a crime here, but everybody's doing it because of the choice and the accessibility to products that are working best for you. So had we stopped with Kyla because she would have had to smoke it 3 years ago because oils were illegal. So you have to decide personally your journey. Don't look to someone else to do this for you. You have to make those decisions on your own, at your own comfort level. Whatever way you're doing this, legally or illegally, in my opinion, is your right, and I don't interfere with that or have an opinion about that. You have to do what's comfortable for you.
Yeah, but you don't want it acquired on the black market.
You want to know your source, and I tell you the black market, which you're saying is dispensaries, because they're all illegal.
Right.
There are way more dispensaries and way easier access, so I am saying, you can say black market, it sounds really shady and sinister, but the people in that black market out there are people who really care, and they have come there to that market because of a situation like Kyla with themselves.
A lot of those black market people will give you a lab report as to exactly
Yes.
what's in that
And
product.
that's important. So there's good and you have to do your research.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe you could just quickly talk to the licensed products as opposed to the products that are available in the more shady.
Well, we don't know the
Right.
license. Every licensed producer creates their own product line, right?
Right.
So it's just the same as a winery producing a great Pinot Gris. The one across the street might not work for you, but that one does, you know, so, and their combinations, and you exploring what they have available is within your right, and there's lots of information about that. So then you would go to your doctor, you would get their requisition to go to a dispensary, you go to the dispensary and they sign you up with Health Canada, you know, and, you know, I have a little bit of a problem with being signed up with Health Canada that I'm taking cannabis. So I don't know how anybody else feels. Yes.
Veterans
I just
Affairs
wondered,
allow that.
does
That's right.
the CBD, when it acts as inflammatories, or similar to how aspirin would work, does it do the same thing to the body, resulting in blood thinning? Or does it react to the body different? Because, say for me, I can't take aspirin or blood thinners. Would this cause the same problem? Or would it do something different?
You know what, I actually have in the back of my head a question about coagulation. So can you actually just email me?
Sure.
I don't want to give you, I'll research it.
Sure.
Great,
Thanks.
okay.
I'm curious about the mode of action in the endocannabinoid system. I understand you give examples when you're dealing with inflammation-related pain, but what if you have neuropathic pain? Is it a different mode of action? And my second part to that question is, what what is the best way to get the cannabinoids into your system if you do have neuropathic pain?
Well, there's several different ways. So basically, you can do all of the modalities. You could smoke, you could vaporize, you can, like if you have neuropathic pain here, you can use a sub in either region, it doesn't matter. Let's see, the neuropathic. It works with different, it works, so I have it in my notes. It works along the, like this, several different regions from the brain to the, like the spinal cord, the dorsal bone. Like it has several different specific regions where it impacts the neuropathic pain and works with the chronic pain, tactile, like all of those things. From the top of my head, at this point, not eating lunch, I don't think I can list them all off for you, but definitely I can share that information with you in detail, like